You think you remember what actually happened. You don't. Memory isn't a recording. It isn't a photograph. It isn't even close. It's a story your brain rewrites every single time you access it. And in 2015, scientists proved something that should terrify you. They sat ordinary people down in a lab. No drugs, no hypnosis, no tricks, just 3 conversations. And by the end, 70% of those people had confessed, in vivid, emotional detail, to crimes they never committed. Crimes they had absolutely no memory of committing, until they did. Here's what most people assume about memory. You experience something, your brain records it. Later, you play it back, like a video file, stored, fixed, yours. But that feeling isn't accuracy. That feeling is confidence. And confidence and accuracy have almost nothing to do with each other when it comes to how your brain stores the past. Because memory was never designed to be a record. It was designed to be useful. And those are 2 completely different things. In 1974, a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus ran a simple experiment that nobody took seriously at first. She showed participants footage of a car accident. Then she asked them questions. Half the group was asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? The other half was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? One word. Hit versus smashed. That's all that changed. The smashed group estimated significantly higher speeds. They were also far more likely to later report seeing broken glass in the footage. There was no broken glass. Single word, embedded in a question asked after the fact, quietly rewritten what people believed they saw. Loftus called this the misinformation effect, and it was only the beginning. Over the next 2 decades, Loftus kept pushing. She wanted to know how far it could go. Not just whether she could change a detail, whether she could create an entire memory from nothing. In the mid-1990s, she ran what became known as the Lost in the Mall study. Participants were given a booklet describing 4 events from their childhood, provided by a family member. 3 of the events were real. 1 was completely fabricated. A story about getting lost in a shopping mall as a child, becoming frightened, and being rescued by an elderly stranger. None of it had happened. At the end of the study, 25% of participants not only remembered getting lost in the mall, they added details Loftus had never given them. Color of the stranger's jacket, specific stores they passed, the exact feeling of panic as they realized their parents were gone. They weren't lying. They weren't performing. They remembered it completely. These weren't weak-minded people. They weren't particularly suggestible. They were ordinary university students who had agreed to participate in a memory study. And within 3 conversations, the majority of them had manufactured a full criminal memory so convincing they couldn't distinguish it from anything else they had ever lived. Which forces an uncomfortable question. How does this happen? The answer is in how memory actually works at the biological level. Every time you recall a memory, your brain doesn't simply retrieve it the way a computer pulls a file. It reconstructs it. Your hippocampus reassembles the memory from fragments, sensory impressions, emotional tags, contextual cues, and stitches them together into something that feels seamless. During that reassembly, the memory is briefly vulnerable. New information present in your environment at the moment of recall can be woven directly into the reconstruction. Details that weren't there before can be added. Details that were there can be altered or removed. And then, the memory is stored again, updated, overwritten, not with what happened, with what you just remembered. Which means every time you access a memory, you are 1 step further from the original event, and 1 step closer to a story your brain has been quietly editing ever since. The memories that feel the most vivid, the most emotionally charged, the most absolutely certain, are not necessarily the most accurate. They are the most rehearsed. Every time you've told a story from your life, you weren't sharing a memory, you were reinforcing the most recent version of it. The childhood story you've told 100 times is not the memory of what happened. It's the memory of the last time you told it. Somewhere across all those retellings, details drifted, emotions shifted. The version of events that fit the story you needed to tell about yourself quietly became the version you believe is true. Loftus spent decades testifying in courtrooms trying to explain this. Because it doesn't just matter in a lab. It matters when someone sits across from a detective and describes what they saw. It matters when an eyewitness points across a courtroom. It matters when a therapist helps a patient recover memories of abuse. Loftus's research became one of the most cited and most contested bodies of work in all of psychology. Because if memory is this malleable, then everything built on human testimony becomes fragile in a way most institutions are not prepared to accept. The Innocence Project has used DNA evidence to exonerate more than 375 wrongfully convicted people in the United States. In over 69% of those cases, the primary evidence that sent an innocent person to prison was eyewitness testimony. Someone remembered, completely, confidently, incorrectly. So here's what you're left with. You have somewhere between tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of memories. They feel like your past. They feel like evidence of who you are are and what you've lived. But they are not recordings. They are reconstructions, assembled from fragments, shaped by every retelling, quietly edited by emotion, suggestion, and the stories you need to believe about yourself. Some of them are accurate, some of them have drifted, and some of them, if the right person asked the right questions in the right order, might not have happened the way you remember it all. This is not a reason to trust nothing. It is a reason to hold everything a little more lightly, including the version of yourself you carry around as fact. Because the person you think you are is built almost entirely out of a past your brain has been rewriting since the day it happened, and you had no idea until now.